It's fair to say reading progress in April did not go to plan. But never mind, these things happen, and today I'm here to tell you about what happened, really, and about the books that I did get to, and at least make some progress with. I do have one DNF to share with you that I picked up in April as well, which is a bit unfortunate and also contributed to kind of the overall scenario where I had a lull sort of towards the beginning to the middle of the month on reading. But never mind, let's move on and let me get into where I started back at the beginning of April. I had a couple of carryovers from the end of March. Now, the first of those was a blog tour review. That book was Storm of Mercia by MJ Porter. Now, I had a review deadline for this book on my blog for the 2nd of April, so as I'm sure you can imagine, my priority at the beginning of this month was making all haste with Storm of Mercia. Now, the good news is this is I want to say the 9th or 10th installment of its series. So it's a series and storyline that I'm well equipped and know a lot about. It's something I've been keeping up with as well, as I've been reviewing the books as part of the publication tours. So I've been pretty up to date. So jumping in and out of this book was pretty quick for me. So whilst I was reading up until kind of the last minute deadline, I did finish this and I published my review on time, which is always a win. In summary, that book is a historical fiction series that follows the main character called Isel, who has already really progressed in his storyline. So we begin this series with Son of Mercia, where he is training to be a healer. He kind of despises violence and doesn't want to be a part of that. His values are life and giving life and preserving life. Now, unfortunately, his path takes him on a very different route, but whilst he does retain these kind of core values, and his healing skills are always coming into use given that he's on a battlefield, he has had to learn how to stand up for himself and to defend others as well. So this is very reminiscent of the likes of Bernard Cornwell's The Last Kingdom series, or like Vikings, anything like that, set in kind of Saxon England, predominantly based in Mercia, but Isel's travels do take him all across the country. So if that's kind of your cup of tea, then I strongly suggest you start at the beginning with Son of Mercia, and you've got plenty of books to keep you going. My audiobook carryover from the end of March was Kate Quinn's The Astral Library. Now, I really enjoyed this book anyway. I enjoyed the idea of the book being almost like a book of books, where the main character finds herself in a library where she is able to dip in and out of her favourite titles and really become immersed in these stories herself. It's a place of protection for people who really can't find their place in our modern world. Now, where I left off in my March wrap up, I didn't have much of this book left, and events were already starting to come to a head, so really this was a pretty quick listen to get finished. Now, I did really enjoy this one, as I've said. I don't want to spoil any ending or anything for you, so I'm not going to divulge any details, but I did particularly enjoy how this book kind of pokes fun at the modern world. Also, like, the author pokes fun at herself. In particular, she makes reference to one of the characters having a poke at her as a writer and saying she's like a dragon to work for, sort of thing. So I love the humour element that really kind of helped carry this storyline along. But it was fantastic. If you enjoy more kind of contemporary modern writing, then this is going to be for you. So, with my carryovers and my reading obligations out of the way, I then went back to a book I started in March but had to put down in order to prioritise those obligations. Yes, I'm talking about George Orwell's 1984. Now, I had left off this book about a third of the way in, so I'd already made a solid start. And remember, this is my third read of the book, so it was obvious, kind of, I knew what was going on. I was reading the book more as a refresher because I want to pick up a retelling of the same story, but written from the perspective of Julia. Now, unfortunately, I got a little bit stuck about here, and there were a number of factors in play. So around the beginning of April, I unfortunately had a lot of work deadlines. That meant I ended up doing overtime. It's not fun, but unfortunately it was necessary. So we were busy anyway. We're down on staff as well, which doesn't help. So I ended up spending a good number of evenings, or at least a few hours, over several evenings working over. Fun. But then not only that, obviously once I kind of got over the other side of that, I rebelled a little bit and I was just like, no, I'm doing what I want. So I spent a lot of time playing on my Switch, just taking part in other hobbies, really. So unfortunately, like, my tired brain just kind of rebelled on reading for a little bit. So yeah, kind of got stuck at this point. And obviously with 1984 being a reread, like, I knew what happened. So there was no pull, I suppose there would be with a book I haven't read before, where I want to uncover the ending because I don't know what happens. So unfortunately, I think it was just kind of a bad timing issue that I'd already dragged on this book from March anyway. So I think it just got itself into a rut, and unfortunately, that meant I spent a good portion of the month just sat on this book. Nevertheless, I did manage to finish it, and I did enjoy it. I would like to point out I rated this 5 stars again, as I kind of suspected I would. So it was a good read. I just needed to get myself back in the headspace to pick it up, which finally I did, and I've had much better reading progress at the end of April. So fingers crossed, I'm back in the groove. I hope I haven't just jinxed it there. At the same time as reading 1984, I was listening to an audiobook copy of Onyx and Ivory. You may recall I pulled that out of my TBR jar in my April TBR video, which I will link up here if anyone wants to go and check that out. It'll give you a view of the books I intended to read in April, because most of them don't feature here. Never mind. Now, unfortunately, I think this also came at a bit of a bad time. This was a stretch on my usual reading in that it's a young adult audience, it's a romantasy, which, as you know, isn't really my predominant genre, although I am pushing myself out there to pick up Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series, which also falls in that genre. So I am trying to read it. I tried to listen to Onyx and Ivory, but unfortunately, it was fine, but it was just a bit meh. And then combine that with the kind of the period I was in where I had a bit of a slump with reading. I just wasn't particularly vibing with Onyx and Ivory, unfortunately. So in the end, I did take the decision to DNF this book. I had given myself till the end of April to re-pick it up, if you like, but I didn't. And I think that's pretty telling. So rather than try and force my way through it, I just decided to put it down. I have more than enough books on my reading list that I can pick up, rather than spending my time slogging through something I'm not enjoying. Life's too short for that. So yeah, that one was a bit of a flop for me. It was fine, like I say. I think had I been in a different headspace, I could have finished this book. It was okay. So this is not a bad review or any kind of negative comment in terms of the book. The book is fine. It's just me, and me at that time. It wasn't working. So if you have read that book and you really enjoy it, then great. I want to hear about it. What I'm saying is I'm not poo-pooing the book. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm not trying to be unfair to the book. I'm just saying it wasn't working for me right now. I'm pretty sure I can say thank you to a deadline to be the main reason I got out of my reading slump. Now, you may remember I tried to pick up a book called Looking at Women, Looking at War in March. Now, as it happens, I didn't get to that book in March either. And as this was a library loan, I had to extend this for a month. So I had a deadline of the 27th of April to read this book. I'm sure you can imagine where this is going, but I picked up the book on the 25th. So Yeah, really getting ahead. I told you it wasn't a good month. Yeah, so obviously aware that this deadline was coming up, I then had to pick up this book and pick it up pretty damn quickly. But thankfully, it was a really big hit. Also, not too long of a book, so the readable content of it is about 290 pages. There are also some appendices and stuff at the end if you kind of wanted to go down that route. But yeah, I had a little bit of a deadline to give me a kick up the bum, and kick up the bum it did. Not only that, but I also couldn't take this library loan back after 5 o'clock on the day it was due, as I was hoping to after work and have all of my lunch hour to read this book, because the library shut at 5. So I had a very quick speed read for the first 40 minutes of my lunch, and then I managed to run it back. So I was really, really, really down to the wire on this one, but it was a really interesting read. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Looking at Women, Looking at War, this is a book written by Ukrainian writer Victoria Amelina, and she started recording notes and effectively recording this journal when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Now, obviously, she alludes to previous incursions from 2014 onwards, because this isn't something that's just kicked off in recent history necessarily. But what she was doing was making notes and finding out more about war crimes that were taking place in Ukraine and affecting the Ukrainian people, with a view to publishing them and reporting them, so that then the people responsible can face justice for their crimes. Now, unfortunately, this book wasn't properly finished, because unfortunately Victoria was caught up in a missile strike, and unfortunately then died of her injuries. So she wasn't able to finish this book as a full cohesive piece. So this book was quite unusual to read, in that there are kind of editing notes in there that's literally comment that sentences weren't finished, certain chapters weren't fully written out. So instead, they are full of Victoria's handwritten draft notes. So it's very unusual to read a book in that format, and also to read something about something ongoing. It's history, but not history yet, if you know what I mean. It's too fresh, too soon, and we don't know what the conclusion is. So I suppose it's more current events rather than history, but there we go. So yes, very different book to read. But it worked for me, and especially having the deadline just gave me the kick I needed. Finally, we are on to my 2 books that I was reading at the end of April, and I'm carrying over into the beginning of May. First of those is my read along for Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series, and the second book is Crown of Midnight. Now, obviously, I was hoping to pick this up a little bit more timely as well, but unfortunately, we are where we are. Now, I have been prioritising this after Looking at Women, Looking at War, so really, I started this book, I want to say sort of 28th, 29th of April. Currently, I'm about 15% in, and I have also borrowed this from my library, so I have motivation to get on with it. But I also have the third book that I want to read in May to try and keep up with this read along, because I've not done a very good job of that so far. So apologies, guys. I will get better. Maybe I shouldn't make promises I can't keep. So anyway, I have this on my radar. It's kind of on my immediate radar to get this finished, so then I can pick up the third book in May. Now I'm really getting on with this. For a series that I wouldn't necessarily have picked up a couple of years ago, I really got on with the first book. And what I've enjoyed about what I've read in Crown of Midnight so far is that we have enough overlap with the first book of the series to really help me get back into the storyline. But we already see a number of elements kind of coming into play that are going to form the kind of, the narrative and the events that take place in this book kind of being hinted at already. So we have enough of similarity, but enough newness that I am asking questions about where this can go. I would also maybe what we can learn about Selena herself. Fingers crossed I really get on with this one, and that I can get on with it quickly, so then we can get to book 3 very soon. watch this space. Finally, I opted for a completely fresh audiobook to try and finish off this month. Rather than try flogging a dead horse, really, with my April TBR at that point, I just decided to go for something completely different, in the hopes that it also gives me a kick and gets me back into the groove. So, a topic I have been wanting to learn about and kind of deliberately sort out a book that fits this prompt is reading about insulin resistance and kind of what happens on a biological level. Now, that's because I think I may suffer from this myself, and it's believed to be a precursor to a number of chronic health conditions. Some of those are in my family, and mainly the most important thing is that I want to get out of this book is what I can do to help reverse it, or at least not make it so bad. So I have been listening to this book for from an educational perspective, but I've also been really enjoying the kind of writing style and the formatting of this book. So listening to this has been pretty easy. I'm really getting on with it. So I imagine this is also going to be a pretty quick listen that I get finished at the beginning of May. And that opens up my possibilities for my May TBR. Now, I will be recording that May TBR in just a few minutes, and that will be going live on my channel in a couple of days. I'm just not going to make my life easy, because why would I do that? So normally I set myself a pretty ambitious list, and I would say my May list is also going to be ambitious. But as you've probably gathered from this video, I like having a target to chase, a deadline to kind of have. Like if left to my own devices, I'll just plod along and not get anywhere. But I like having something to chase. So a long list and hoping to get to that list will hopefully give me the nudge I need to keep me picking up books. And obviously then I can talk to you guys about it. So that's everything from me in this April wrap-up video. I hope you've enjoyed. Have you read any of the books I've featured in today's video? Did you get on with some of them more than I did? Let me know in the comments. And I hope you can check out my May TBR in a couple of days. Until then, bye for now.